The Inheritance. On a remote hilltop overlooking a dreary village, the Grand Blake Manor stood as a towering monument to the noble Blake family's centuries of prestige and power. Within its imposing Gothic walls, patriarch Johnathan Blake prepared to celebrate his 80th birthday, unaware his lavish dinner that night would set into motion a series of horrific events that would forever taint the Blake legacy. Johnathan cut an intimidating figure, his tall frame ramrod straight despite his advanced age, his piercing eyes surveying all before him with a severe intensity. His wife Lillian glided quietly through the manor, her pale face concealing the traumatic secrets of abuse she suffered for decades under her husband's iron fist. Their volatile son Gregory stared broodingly from the window, coveting the empire his father dangled always just out of reach. Gregory took out his simmering frustrations on his timid wife Claire, who flinched involuntarily if her husband made any sudden movements, dreading his violent temper. Their teenage daughter Sophie wanted nothing more than to escape her family's suffocating expectations. She wandered the sprawling mansion grounds, her body tingling with adolescent restlessness, fantasizing about leaving behind this imposing gilded cage and its overbearing traditions. She hesitated before entering the manor again, running her fingers over the birthmark on her cheek that served as an unwanted reminder she could never truly break free of her hereditary obligations. As the sun set, an elaborate dinner table was set by Silas, the dutiful butler who had served the Blakes for decades, privy to countless ugly secrets. One by one, the family members took their places in ornate, high-backed chairs, sipping expensive wine under the flickering glow of candelabras, resentments simmering just below the surface. After the meal, Johnathan rose solemnly. He announced that Gregory was being disinherited due to his violent temperament, and Sophie would be named as Jonathan's sole heir. Stunned silence fell across the table before Gregory suddenly lunged at his father in a murderous rage. Only Silas's quick intervention stopped Gregory's powerful hands from crushing the life out of Johnathan. Later that night, as a raging thunderstorm descended on the manor, Johnathan collapsed with severe chest pains. As Silas rushed to call the doctor, Gregory drunkenly accused Claire and Sophie of conspiring with the old man against him. He viciously backhanded Claire across the face, knocking her to the ground. Sophie screamed for her mother and tried to run, but Gregory grabbed her hair, throwing her against the wall. Turning back to Claire, Gregory let loose years of pent-up fury, kicking and punching her brutally as she begged for mercy. From upstairs, the frail voice of Johnathan cried out weakly. Hearing the violence, he dragged himself step by step down the grand staircase. At the bottom, he surveyed the scene of his only son beating his wife to death, her blood pooling on the polished marble tiles. "Stop this madness," Johnathan commanded before his legs buckled and he collapsed once more. Seeing her opening, Sophie crawled to the fireplace tools, grabbing a heavy iron poker. With tears streaming down her face, she turned and plunged the poker deep into Gregory's back. He arched in agony, collapsing dead atop his slain wife. Sobbing uncontrollably, Sophie dropped the bloody poker. Johnathan, barely conscious, hissed at her and Silas to quickly hide the bodies and scrub the evidence from the scene. As the thunder outside rumbled ominously, they dragged Gregory and Claire's corpses down to the old cellar crypt. In the days after, Sophie wandered the manor numb with trauma and regret. She flinched constantly, imagining threats lurking in every shadowed corner. The once grand, imposing mansion now felt tainted by the blood spilled within its walls. Lillian glided silently through the halls, her hushed presence offering some small comfort to the hollow-eyed girl. One night, Lillian came to Sophie's room and embraced her warmly. She revealed that years ago she had stabbed Johnathan with a letter opener during a vicious confrontation. They hid the truth to protect the family's reputation. Now Lillian promised Sophie that she would shield her too. but threats soon emerged from Gregory's sinister criminal connections, seeking vengeance for their fallen associate. Sophie also felt her grandfather growing increasingly cold, demanding her silence and compliance. She contemplated confessing to the authorities, but worried Johnathan's high-powered lawyers would pin everything on her as a violent, troubled teen. Johnathan's health rapidly declined, even as he became more obsessed with ensuring the Blake legacy continued after his impending death. He forced Lillian and Sophie to take a blood oath to uphold the family name by any means necessary. During her aimless wanders of the manor grounds, Sophie made a chilling discovery. In the overgrown southern cemetery plots, she found cracked gravestones for a family named Abernathy. Her research indicated the Abernathys were local farmers murdered a century ago after speaking out against Johnathan's grandfather, seizing their land. She realized the Blake fortune was built on generations of exploiting and killing innocents. Soon after, Sophie noticed she was being followed whenever she left the manor. One night, a black sedan cornered her on a dark road. Two men emerged, asking about her father's old associates. Their polite words carried an implicit threat of violence. The next morning, Lillian was found at the base of the grand staircase, left unconscious and bleeding by an intruder. Sophie realized with chilling clarity that she must fully embrace the darkness rooted deep within the Blake bloodline if she was going to save her broken family. After discovering her stalker's identity, Sophie lured him to a secluded lake on the grounds with a false promise of paying him off. As he looked down greedily to count her money, she shot him cleanly through the temple, then dragged his corpse away to be buried, keeping her hand steady through sheer force of will. By Johnathan's large ornate deathbed, Sophie swore an oath to uphold the Blake legacy, no matter who had to die. After his funeral, she set in motion ruthless schemes to reclaim dominance over those threatening her inheritance, eliminating rivals with cold precision. She kept one small candle lit in her window, flickering in the blackness, a sole point of light clutched onto in hopes that she might someday reclaim her corrupted soul. In the end, Blake Manor stood silent and empty, its inheritors vanished or dead, its legacy reduced to twisted rumors about the cursed ruins on the hilltop overlooking that dreary village. Behind the manor's imposing walls, only shadows wandered its abandoned halls, echoing with the sins of generations. Please like, share, and subscribe for more creepy tales from the netherworld. Thanks for your support. Until next time, sweet dreams.